Everything is energy, and you're the one controlling it, even if you don't realize it yet. Right now, your brain is processing millions of signals every second. The sensation of your clothes against your skin, the hum of background noise, subtle shifts in light, all happening, all unnoticed. Why? Because your brain filters them out to keep you focused. But here's the catch. That same filtering is also keeping you stuck. Think about the last time you tried to learn something new, maybe a sport, a language, or a skill. At first, it felt awkward and clumsy. Your movements were stiff, your thoughts scattered. But with practice, things started flowing naturally. What changed? Your brain rewired itself, creating new pathways and patterns. This is where energy control comes in. Many people think they need more energy to get things done. But often, it's not about having more energy. It's about using what you already have in smarter ways. It's like having a full tank of gas but driving with the parking brake on. The energy is there, but it's not flowing right. So, how do you fix that? By breaking down the barriers between conscious and unconscious processing, you unlock abilities you didn't know you had. This isn't just a mental hack, it's grounded in neuroscience and cognitive psychology. Let's try something simple. Close your eyes and focus on your breathing. Notice each breath, how some feel deep, others shallow, some warm, others cool. Don't try to change anything, just observe. After a few moments, your breathing will naturally shift. That's your brain releasing unnecessary control patterns. This principle applies everywhere. Our minds create countless invisible rules. Rules we can learn to bend or break. Think of a cat landing on its feet or a baby learning to walk. They don't follow step-by-step instructions. They let their bodies figure it out. As we grow up, we start overthinking. We force results instead of letting them happen. We get stuck in rigid patterns of thought and behavior. These patterns might help in some ways, but they also block us from reaching our full potential. Energy control is about spotting these hidden patterns and working with them, not against them. It's like learning to surf instead of fighting the waves. The force is already there. You just need to ride it. You'll learn how your brain creates its version of reality and how to adjust that perception. It's not about seeing things that aren't there. It's about noticing what's been there all along, waiting to be discovered. The techniques are practical and straightforward. No fancy tools, no years of training, just clear steps that build on each other, giving you results from day one. Think of your mind like a camera lens. Right now it's on auto mode, letting your brain decide what to focus on. Energy control teaches you how to switch to manual, giving you more options and better results. This might sound abstract, but the effects are real and measurable. Athletes use these techniques to sharpen their performance. Musicians use them to play with precision. Business leaders use them to make clearer decisions. The applications are endless because these principles tap into how your brain naturally works, and most people aren't even aware of it. Before we go further, take a moment to notice your surroundings. Really notice the colors, shapes, textures. Feel how your attention jumps from one thing to another. This constant movement of attention is a tool we'll learn to direct and use. The key is starting small and building gradually. Just like you can't run a marathon without training, you can't instantly master control over your mental processes. But with the right approach, you can make steady progress that adds up to big changes. In the coming sections, we'll break down exactly how to do this, step by step. You'll learn to see through the illusions your brain creates and access deeper levels of awareness and control. Not by forcing anything, but by removing the blocks that hold you back. And the techniques are simple, but the results can be amazing. Let's start. Our subconscious is like the matrix of perception that shapes how we see and interact with everything around us. Think of your brain as a supercomputer that processes millions of bits of information every second. But here's the catch. We don't notice most of it. Right now, your brain is filtering out the feeling of your clothes on your skin, the background sounds, and countless other sensations. It picks what matters and drops the rest. This filtering system helped our ancestors survive by focusing on threats and food, and we still use it today. Let me show you something interesting. Close your eyes for 5 seconds. What did you hear? Most people notice sounds they didn't pay attention to before. Your brain was always picking up these sounds, but it didn't bring them to your attention until you focused on them. This selective attention works like a spotlight in a dark room. Whatever the light points at becomes clear, while everything else stays in shadow. But unlike a real spotlight, your brain can move this focus instantly between different senses, from sight to sound to touch and back again. Your beliefs and past experiences color everything you notice. If you think snakes are dangerous, you'll spot snake-like shapes faster than someone who likes snakes. Your brain creates shortcuts based on what you've learned matters to you. These shortcuts can trick us. Look at a banana under blue light. It still looks yellow because your brain knows bananas are yellow. Your brain changes what you see to match what it expects to see. This happens all the time without you knowing it. But you can train your brain to notice more. Athletes do this. They practice until they can spot tiny movements their opponents make, like a slight shift in weight that signals a direction change. Musicians learn to hear subtle differences in sound, like microtones or timbre that most people miss. Poker players become experts at reading micro-expressions or changes in breathing that reveal when someone's bluffing. Chefs develop a highly refined palate, detecting even the slightest imbalance of seasoning in a dish. Detectives sharpen their ability to pick up on inconsistencies in body language or tone during an interrogation. And stock traders train their minds to spot patterns and anomalies in market behavior that others overlook. Your brain gets better at noticing what you train it to notice, no matter the skill or profession. What you focus on, you empower. Think about learning to drive. At first, everything needed conscious attention. The pedals, the steering, checking mirrors. Now you do most of it automatically. Your brain learned what to focus on and what to handle in the background. This same process happens with energy work. When you start, you might struggle to feel subtle energy movements. But with practice, these sensations become clear. Your brain learns new patterns and creates new shortcuts. You can use this to your advantage. By practicing focused attention, you teach your brain to notice energy patterns it used to filter out. It's like turning up the contrast on a photo. The details were always there, but now you can see them better. Let's try something. Focus on your hands. Don't move them, just feel them. After a few seconds, you might notice tingling, warmth, or a slight pulsing. These sensations were always there. You just weren't tuned into them before. Your brain creates your reality based on a tiny fraction of available information. By learning how this process works, you can start to expand what you notice and experience. This isn't about seeing things that aren't there. It's about noticing what's already present. The matrix of perception isn't fixed. It changes based on what you learn and practice. Every time you work with energy, you're training your brain to notice new patterns and connections. This makes energy work easier and more natural over time. Think of it like learning a new language. At first, you hear a stream of unfamiliar sounds. With practice, you start picking out words, then sentences, then subtle meanings. The sounds didn't change. Your brain learned to organize them differently. Energy work follows the same pattern. The sensations you'll learn to feel aren't new. They're part of your normal sensory input. What changes is how your brain processes and presents this information to your conscious mind. This is why different people can have different experiences with the same energy technique. Their brains have learned to notice and interpret sensations in their own ways. There's no wrong way, just different patterns of perception. Understanding how your brain filters and processes information lets you work with this system instead of against it. You can use your natural perception patterns to build new skills more effectively. As we move forward, keep in mind that everything you learn will become part of your perception matrix. Each new technique and experience will help your brain create better shortcuts for working with energy. This makes each step easier than the last. The matrix of perception is your foundation for all energy work. By working with it, instead of fighting it, you make learning easier and results more consistent. Let's build on this as we explore how these patterns connect to quantum reality. The quantum world breaks all the rules we know from our daily lives. Things can exist in many places at once. Particles can connect across space instantly, and the act of looking at something changes it. These aren't just weird ideas. They're how reality works at its smallest level. Think about a coin spinning on a table. In our normal world, it's either heads or tails when it stops. But quantum particles can be like a coin that's both heads and tails at the same time. Scientists call this superposition bizarre, where something exists in multiple states until we measure it. This isn't just a strange theory. We use quantum mechanics in many modern technologies. Your phone's processor relies on quantum effects. GPS satellites need quantum calculations to give accurate locations. Even photosynthesis in plants uses quantum processes to turn sunlight into energy. One of the most fascinating parts of quantum physics is how particles can link together in ways that seem impossible. Two particles can become entangled, so that affecting one instantly affects the other, no matter how far apart they are. Einstein called this spooky action at a distance because it seemed to break his rule that nothing can travel faster than light. But the quantum world isn't just about tiny particles. Its effects show up in bigger things too. Scientists have made visible objects enter quantum states. They've put tiny mirrors, small pieces of metal, and even living bacteria into superposition. This makes the line between the quantum world and our everyday world not as clear as we once thought. The quantum world also questions what we mean by reality. Is something real if we can't observe it? If a quantum particle can be in two places at once until we look at it, what does that tell us about the nature of existence? These questions push us to think differently about what's real and what's possible. Some scientists think quantum mechanics might explain how our brains work. The idea is that quantum processes in our brain cells could help explain consciousness, how we think and feel. While this is still debated, it shows how quantum physics might connect to every part of our lives. The math behind quantum mechanics works perfectly, but what it means is still debated. Some think there are many parallel universes where different possibilities play out. Others believe our consciousness creates reality by observing it. These different interpretations all fit the math, but they paint very different pictures of reality. Quantum technology is starting to change our world. Quantum computers can solve certain problems much faster than regular computers. Quantum cryptography offers unbreakable codes for sending secret messages. Quantum sensors can detect tiny changes in gravity, magnetic fields, and time itself. The quantum world also shows us how connected everything is. In quantum physics, empty space isn't really empty. It's full of virtual particles popping in and out of existence. Everything affects everything else. We can't separate the observer from what's being observed. This connects back to how we see reality. Our brains process information about the world, but quantum physics suggests that the act of observation helps create the reality we see. The world might not be as solid and separate as it appears. Looking at quantum physics changes how we think about cause and effect. In the quantum world, effects can come before causes. Particles can influence their own past. Time itself becomes more flexible than we usually think it is. These ideas might seem strange, but they're supported by countless experiments. Every time scientists test quantum theory, it proves correct. The weird quantum world is the real world. We just don't usually notice it because we're too big. Scientists keep finding new quantum effects and applications. They're learning to control quantum systems better, leading to new technologies. The quantum world isn't just about physics. It's becoming part of engineering, biology, and computing. The quantum world shows us that reality is more interesting than we imagined. It's not just about tiny particles, it's about the basic nature of everything. Understanding quantum physics helps us see how amazing and mysterious our universe really is. This takes us to our next topic, how the act of observation changes what we're looking at. The quantum world has shown us that we can't separate the observer from what's being observed. This observer effect is key to understanding both quantum physics and how we experience reality. The act of watching changes what we see. This simple truth lies at the heart of quantum physics and carries deep meaning for how we work with energy. Think of a child playing alone. They act naturally, freely, without concern. But as soon as they notice someone watching, their behavior shifts. They become more self-conscious, perhaps showing off or hiding away. This same principle shows up in the tiniest parts of our universe. When scientists try to measure a quantum particle, the very act of measurement affects its state. It's like trying to check if a room is dark. You have to turn on a light, but that light changes the darkness you wanted to observe. Let's look at what this means for energy work. When you focus your attention on energy, you're not just passively watching, you're taking part in how it moves and changes. Your observation creates a connection, a bridge between you and what you're observing. But this isn't bad news. It's actually a tool we can use. By knowing that our attention affects energy, we can be more precise in our practice. If you want to sense energy in your hands, the moment you focus on that sensation, you're already starting to create it. Your expectation helps shape what happens. This brings us to an interesting question. If observation changes what we're looking at, how do we know what's real? The answer might surprise you. Everything we observe is real, just changed by our observation. It's like a dance, where both partners affect each other's movements. Think about watching the sunset. The colors you see, the feelings it creates, these come from both the sunset itself and how you're choosing to experience it. Your mood, your thoughts, your focus, all play a part in what that sunset means to you. For energy work, this means being aware of how your attention shapes your experience. If you're looking for peaceful energy, your observation helps create that peace. If you're searching for strength, your focus helps bring that strength forward. But there's more to it than just watching. The observer effect teaches us about responsibility in our practice. Since we know our attention affects what we observe, we need to be clear about our intentions. What we focus on grows stronger. This doesn't mean we're making things up. Instead, we're participating in reality rather than just watching it. When you work with energy, you're both the observer and part of what's being observed. It's like being both the photographer and part of the photograph. Let's consider what this means in practice. When you sense energy, notice how your expectations influence what you feel. Are you looking for warmth, tingling, movement? Your expectations help shape your experience. This isn't wrong. It's natural and useful, as long as you stay aware of it. The observer effect shows us that there's no such thing as purely objective observation. Everything we do, everything we notice, everything we measure, includes our own influence. This is both a challenge and an opportunity. For those starting out in energy work, this might seem strange. How can you trust what you're experiencing if you're partly creating it? The answer is simple. What matters is the result, not whether it fits some idea of pure observation. If your practice helps you grow and heal, it's working. Think of it like learning to ride a bike. At first, you might worry about whether you're doing it right. But once you're moving, what matters is that you're staying up and going where you want to go. The same goes for energy work. Focus on results rather than perfect technique. The observer effect teaches us to be honest about our role in what we experience. We're not passive watchers, but active participants in everything we do. This awareness makes our practice more effective because we stop fighting against our natural influence and start using it wisely. As we move forward, keep in mind that your attention is a tool. Like any tool, it works better when you know how it affects what you're working with. Your observation creates change. Use this knowledge to guide your practice and strengthen your results. This understanding leads us naturally to our next topic: how to work with these principles to break through old patterns and create new possibilities. The illusion of separation between observer and observed is about to shatter, opening up new ways of working with energy. The way we see energy has been wrong from the start. Most of us grew up thinking about energy as something that just happens, like electricity flowing through wires or heat rising from a stove. But these are just the surface effects of something much bigger. Think about what happens when you turn on a light switch. We say electricity flows from the power plant, through the grid, into your home and makes the bulb glow. This explanation feels right because it matches what we see. But it's an illusion, a story we tell ourselves to make sense of what's happening. The truth is more surprising. Energy doesn't flow anywhere. It's already everywhere all the time. What we call energy transfer is really just a chain reaction of energy states changing from one form to another. The power plant doesn't send energy to your home. It creates a disturbance in the energy field that already exists everywhere, and that disturbance ripples through the grid until it reaches your light bulb. This might sound like splitting hairs, but the difference is huge. Once you stop thinking about energy as something that moves from place to place, you start seeing the real picture. Everything around us is made of energy in different states. Matter itself is just energy in a very dense, stable form. Let's look at heat. We say heat rises, but heat isn't a thing that moves up. It's energy spreading out to reach balance. When you put your hand near a hot object, you're not feeling heat traveling to your skin. You're feeling your own energy state changing in response to the energy state of the air molecules around you. The same goes for every form of energy we know. Sound isn't a thing moving through air. It's a pattern of pressure changes in the energy that's already there. Light isn't something streaming from the sun. It's a ripple in the electromagnetic field that fills all space. Electricity works the same way. It's not electrons traveling down a wire, but a wave of energy transferring through the field around the wire. Even gravity isn't a force pulling objects together. It's the curvature of space-time causing energy to seek balance. Think about water flowing down a hill. It's not the water itself that's driving the movement. It's the energy difference between higher and lower ground. And chemical reactions? They're just energy rearranging itself within molecules, creating new bonds as it seeks equilibrium. Everywhere you look, energy is shifting, spreading, and transforming. Not as something separate, but as the very fabric of existence shaping itself in infinite ways. This new way of seeing energy changes everything about how we can work with it. Instead of trying to push energy around, we can focus on changing energy states in useful ways. It's like the difference between trying to move water by carrying it in buckets versus opening and closing dams to direct the flow of a river. The observer effect we talked about earlier starts making more sense too. We're not separate observers watching energy do things. We're part of the same energy field, interacting with it through our observations. Every measurement we make, every interaction we have is really just one part of the energy field affecting another part. This isn't just theory. It has real practical uses. Solar panels work better when we design them based on energy state changes rather than trying to capture sunlight. Batteries last longer when we build them to maintain stable energy states instead of thinking about storing and releasing charge. Even simple machines work more efficiently when we stop fighting against energy's natural patterns and start working with them. Breaking free of the old way of thinking about energy takes practice. We're so used to the illusion that it feels more real than reality. But once you start seeing energy as it really is, as a single field that everything is part of, you can't go back to the old view. The next time you see any kind of energy in action, Try to look past what your eyes tell you is happening. Don't see things moving or flowing. See energy states changing in a connected field. Don't think about separate objects interacting. Think about different parts of the same system affecting each other. This shift in perspective opens up new possibilities for how we can use energy. Instead of fighting against what we think are the limits of energy transfer, we can work with the natural patterns of energy state changes. We can stop wasting effort trying to move energy around and focus on creating the right conditions for useful energy state changes to happen on their own. The illusion of separate energies moving between separate objects has held us back for too long. By breaking free of it, we can start working with energy as it really is, a single interconnected field that we're all part of. This isn't just a different way of thinking about energy. It's the key to using it more effectively than ever before. Your brain is like plastic. It can change and grow. Scientists call this neuroplasticity. Every time you try something new, you create new pathways in your mind. These paths can replace the old routes that led to limitations in your energy field. Think of your comfort zone as a starting point, not a prison cell. Each step outside makes the zone bigger. The walls start to fade. What seemed impossible becomes possible. But watch out for the sneaky ways your mind tries to rebuild those walls. It might say, "That was just luck," when you succeed. Or, "This is too hard," when facing challenges. These thoughts are just echoes of the old prison. Look at children playing. They become pirates, astronauts, doctors, and dancers without doubting themselves. They haven't learned to limit their possibilities yet. That freedom still exists in you. It's just hidden behind walls of doubt. Your senses filter reality based on what you expect to see. If you believe something's impossible, your brain might miss opportunities right in front of you. It's like wearing sunglasses indoors and wondering why everything looks dark. Breaking free takes practice. Start noticing your automatic no responses. Question them. Ask yourself, is this true? Or is it just what I'm used to believing? The walls of your perception prison weren't built in a day, and they won't come down in a day either. But every time you question a limitation, try something new, or push past comfort, you weaken those walls. Your true limits are far beyond what your mind tells you. Think of someone who inspired you by doing something impossible. They faced the same mental walls, but chose to push through them. The prison guards are your own thoughts. They patrol the walls with weapons of doubt, fear, and old habits. But you hold the key to the cell. You can choose different thoughts, take different actions, and write a new story. This isn't about positive thinking. It's about accurate thinking. See things as they are, not as your fears paint them. Notice the opportunities your mind might be filtering out. Your perception of prison might feel solid, but it's made of paper-thin thoughts. You can tear through them with questions, curiosity, and small, brave actions. Each step makes you stronger. Each wall you break shows you what's possible. The world outside your perception prison is bigger than you imagine. It's filled with possibilities your mind might have hidden from view. The door is unlocked. The walls are ready to fall. You just need to take that first step. The quantum mirror shows us something strange about how energy works. Think of a mirror in your bathroom. When you look at it, you see yourself looking back. But what if that mirror could show you all the different ways energy moves and changes? Let's say you're standing in front of this special mirror. Instead of seeing just one reflection, you see countless versions of the same scene. Each reflection shows energy moving in slightly different ways. In one reflection, heat rises from your body in red waves. In another, electrical signals pulse through your nerves in blue sparks. In yet another, the atoms in your cells vibrate and dance. This mirror doesn't just show us what's happening now. It shows us what could happen next. Like ripples in a pond, Each tiny change in energy creates new patterns and possibilities. When you move your hand, the mirror shows hundreds of possible paths that energy might take. But here's the weird part. The mirror doesn't just show us these things, it actually affects them too. Just by looking into the mirror, we change how energy moves. Scientists found this out when studying tiny particles. The act of watching them changed how they acted. Think about throwing a ball. Usually you can predict where it will go based on how hard you throw it. But in the quantum world of very tiny things, it's different. The ball could end up in many places at once, and looking at it forces it to pick just one spot. The quantum mirror teaches us that we're not just watching energy, we're part of its dance. Every time we measure something, observe something, or try to control energy, we change it. It's like trying to catch smoke with your hands. The very act of reaching for it changes its shape. This might sound confusing, but it helps explain why some of our attempts to control energy don't work out like we expect. We can't just stand outside and pull strings like a puppet master. We're always in the mirror too, part of the same energy system we're trying to control. Some people who work with energy have started using this idea. Instead of fighting against this strange effect, they work with it. They know that sometimes the best way to direct energy is to step back and let it find its natural path, like water flowing downhill. The mirror also shows us something about time. In its reflections, we can see that energy doesn't just move forward like an arrow. It spreads out in all directions at once, creating webs of connection. Past and future blur together in patterns that look more like a dance than a straight line. This changes how we think about controlling energy. Instead of trying to force it into the shape we want, we can learn to read these patterns. We can spot the places where small changes might create big effects, like finding the right spot to tap a crystal glass to make it sing. But the mirror has one more lesson for us. Sometimes, when we look into it expecting to see chaos and confusion, we find surprising order instead. The same patterns keep showing up, like fractals in nature. The way tree branches look like smaller versions of the whole tree, or how clouds form similar shapes at different sizes. These patterns tell us that even when energy seems random and unpredictable, there might be hidden rules guiding it. Not strict rules like traffic laws, but more like the rules that make birds fly in formation or waves break on a beach. The quantum mirror isn't really a mirror you can buy or build. It's a way of seeing how we connect with energy. Every time we try to measure, control, or change energy, we're looking into this mirror, and what we see looking back isn't just energy, it's ourselves connected to everything else through countless threads of cause and effect. This view changes everything about how we work with energy. We stop thinking about energy as something separate that we need to control. Instead, we start seeing ourselves as part of energy's flow. Like a leaf in a river, we can guide our movement, but we're still part of the current. The next time you work with energy, imagine looking into the quantum mirror. See all the possibilities spreading out from each moment. Notice how your attention changes what you're watching. And remember that you're not just watching the dance of energy, you're dancing too. The act of watching changes what we see. This simple truth lies at the heart of quantum physics, but it also shapes our daily lives in ways we rarely notice. Think of a child playing alone. They move freely, dance without care, talk to themselves. Now watch them openly. Their behavior shifts. They become more self-conscious, perhaps showing off or hiding away. This same principle works inside our minds. When we pay attention to our thoughts and feelings, they transform. A headache feels different once we focus on it. Our breathing pattern changes as soon as we notice it. Our walking style adjusts when we think about how we're moving. Scientists discovered this effect while studying tiny particles. They found that measuring a particle's position affected its speed, and measuring its speed changed its position. You couldn't know both at once. The very tools used to observe changed what was being observed. But this isn't just about physics. It's about how we experience life. When you're caught up in anger, you're inside the emotion. The moment you step back and notice, I am feeling angry, something shifts. The anger doesn't vanish, but your relationship to it changes. You're no longer completely identified with it. This creates a fascinating opportunity. By becoming aware of our patterns and how we react, think, and feel, we can introduce a gap between stimulus and response. In that gap lies our freedom to choose differently. Consider what happens when you catch yourself starting to worry. Usually, worry thoughts chain together automatically. One fear leads to another and another. But if you can spot the pattern starting, you can pause it. The simple act of noticing breaks the spell. The same goes for physical tension. Most of us walk around with tight shoulders or a clenched jaw without realizing it. The moment we become aware, we can let go. The observation itself becomes the solution. But there's a catch. We can't observe everything at once. Like those quantum particles, some aspects of our experience become clearer, while others grow fuzzy. That's okay. We can shift our attention as needed, like adjusting the focus on a camera. This brings us to a practical question. What should we observe? The answer depends on what we want to change or understand. If we're trying to break a habit, we might watch for its triggers. If we're learning a skill, we might track our practice patterns. If we're building relationships, we might notice our communication styles. The key is to observe without judgment. Like a scientist collecting data, we want to see what's actually happening, not what we think should be happening. This neutral awareness is what allows natural change to occur. Sometimes the changes are subtle. A slight shift in posture, a small pause before speaking, a gentle relaxation of tension. Other times, they're dramatic, a complete change in behavior or perspective. Either way, they start with observation. This brings us back to where we started. The simple act of watching changes what we see. But now we can use this knowledge. We can be more strategic about what we pay attention to and how we observe it. We can use our awareness as a tool for growth and change. The observer effect isn't just a quirk of quantum physics or a psychological curiosity. It's a practical tool we can use every day. By choosing what we observe and how we observe it, we can work with this principle rather than being unconsciously affected by it. Next time you want to change something in your life, start by watching it carefully. Don't try to force change. Just observe with curiosity and patience. Let the power of attention do its work. After all, in the dance between observer and observed, both are always changing. The pictures in our minds shape our reality more than we often notice. Think of your mind like a movie projector, constantly playing films about what you expect to happen. These mental movies affect how we feel, act, and what results we get. Let's look at two different mental movies about the same situation. Picture yourself walking into a room full of people. In one version, you see yourself as awkward, out of place, with others judging you. Your heart beats faster, your muscles tense up, and you start feeling anxious before anything has even happened. Now rewind that mental movie and play a different version. This time you see yourself walking in confidently, connecting easily with others, and having good conversations. Notice how your body feels more relaxed and your energy flows better just by changing the movie in your mind. These mental movies run automatically most of the time. They come from our past experiences, what others told us, and what we decided to believe about ourselves. But here's the interesting part. We can learn to be the director of these inner movies instead of just watching them passively. Start by catching yourself when you're playing negative movies in your mind. Maybe you're about to give a presentation, and your mental movie shows you messing up and people laughing. Stop the projection right there. Take a breath. Now, consciously create a new movie where you speak clearly, and people listen with interest. The trick isn't to force yourself to think positively all the time. That's not realistic. Instead, become aware of what movies you're playing and how they affect your energy. Some people think this is just wishful thinking, but research shows that our brain responds to mental rehearsal almost the same way it responds to actual experience. Your brain doesn't know the difference between a real event and one you vividly imagine. Athletes use this principle when they mentally practice their moves, perfecting their technique without ever stepping onto the field. Musicians do it when they rehearse in their minds, visualizing their fingers moving across an instrument or their voices hitting every note. Public speakers use it to rehearse their delivery, imagining the energy of the audience and their confidence on stage. Chess players use it to simulate entire games in their minds, anticipating their opponent's moves and their own counter-strategies. Even surgeons use this technique, visualizing the precise steps of a complex procedure to ensure a steady hand and focused mind. You can use this same principle to shape your energy, decisions, and actions in any situation, visualizing outcomes so clearly that your brain begins to act as if they're already happening. But there's more to it than just positive thinking. The key is to create mental movies that feel true to you, not fantasy scenes that your mind will reject. If you're learning something new, don't imagine yourself being perfect right away. Instead, see yourself improving step by step, handling challenges with growing skill. Let's try something practical. Think of a situation coming up that usually makes you nervous. Notice what movie your mind automatically plays about it. Now, don't try to jump straight to a perfect scenario. Instead, adjust the movie slightly. If you see yourself failing completely, change it to handling things okay, even if not perfectly. If you picture others criticizing you, adjust it to them being neutral or mildly supportive. Make these new mental movies as detailed as possible. What do you see? What sounds are there? How does your body feel? The more senses you involve, the more real it becomes to your brain. Practice playing these improved versions several times a day. You're not trying to fool yourself. You're training your brain to consider new possibilities. This practice changes your energy field. When you consistently run more supportive mental movies, your nervous system calms down. Your body language changes. You send out different signals to others. And often, reality starts matching your new mental movies more closely. Remember those times when you worried endlessly about something, creating detailed disaster movies in your mind? How much energy did that waste? Now imagine using that same mental power to create helpful scenarios instead. You're not denying challenges might happen. You're just choosing where to focus your mental energy. This isn't about never having negative thoughts. It's about recognizing that you have a choice in what mental movies you play and replay. Each time you catch yourself running an unhelpful movie, you have a chance to change the script. Over time, this becomes more natural. Your mind will still create automatic movies based on old patterns. That's normal. But as you practice being the director of your mental movies, you'll get better at quickly noticing when the old projector starts running and choosing to play something more helpful instead. This skill builds a bridge between where you are now and where you want to be, one scene at a time. The mind creates a constant stream of thoughts, images, and stories. But there's something deeper watching it all unfold. This watching presence is what we truly are. When we recognize this, we start to see that our thoughts and the world they paint aren't as solid or serious as they seem. Think of it like sitting in a movie theater. The screen shows all kinds of scenes, happy ones, scary ones, exciting ones. But you're just sitting there watching it all. You don't get wet when it rains on screen. The monster can't actually hurt you. In the same way, our thoughts create a movie in our minds, but we are the awareness watching it. This watching presence is always here, in every experience. It's what knows you're reading these words right now. It's what notices your breathing, the sounds around you, the feelings in your body. This awareness doesn't come and go like thoughts do. It's the constant background to all experience. When we mistake ourselves for our thoughts, we suffer needlessly. We believe we are our worries, our plans, our regrets. But these are just temporary appearances in awareness, like clouds passing through the sky. The sky itself, pure awareness, remains untouched. This isn't just an interesting idea. It points to something immediate and practical. Right now, you can notice that you are aware. This awareness is reading these words. What is it that knows these words are appearing? What is it that notices your thoughts about what you're reading? You might say, well, I am aware, but look closer. This I that's aware, can you find it? Or is there just awareness itself, knowing everything that appears? The sense of being a separate me is itself just another appearance in awareness. This is what unity means. Not that everything becomes one blob, but that everything appears within and as awareness itself. The world doesn't disappear. Thoughts and feelings continue, but they're recognized as expressions of awareness, rather than solid, separate things. You can test this right now. Notice a thought. Where does it appear? Not in space. You can't point to where thoughts are located. They appear in awareness. Notice a sound. Where is it known? In awareness. A sensation in the body. Where is it felt? In awareness. Everything you experience appears in and is known by awareness. This might sound abstract, but it's the most concrete thing there is. It's your direct experience right now. You don't need special states or experiences to notice this. You don't need to change anything. Just look and see. What is it that's aware of this moment? When we see this clearly, something shifts. We stop taking thoughts so seriously. We stop believing in a separate self that needs defending. We see that awareness is already complete, already at peace. The movie of experience can play however it plays. This doesn't mean we become passive or stop engaging with life. Action still happens naturally, but it flows from awareness rather than from a contracted sense of self. We respond to life directly instead of through the filter of me and my story. The mind will object, but what about my problems? What about my life? This sounds like escaping reality. But look at your actual experience. Are you escaping anything by noticing you are aware? Or are you seeing reality more clearly by recognizing what you truly are? This recognition can deepen over time. As we rest more as awareness rather than as a thought-based self, life becomes simpler. Problems don't disappear, but they're seen as appearances in awareness rather than as personal burdens. There's more space, more ease, more natural responsiveness. This is our natural state. We don't need to achieve it or get somewhere. We only need to notice what's already here, the aware presence that you are and always have been. Everything appears within this presence, including the thought that says, this isn't true. So right now, simply notice, what is aware of these words? What knows your thoughts about them? What is present when all thoughts pause? This awareness is what you are. Everything else, thoughts, feelings, perceptions, comes and goes within it. This is unity. Our minds create a personal reality that feels completely real, yet differs from what actually exists. Think of it like watching a movie. We see images on a screen and get pulled into the story, feeling real emotions and reactions, even though we know it's just light and sound. This same process happens in our daily lives. Our brain takes in information through our senses and builds what we think is reality. But this reality isn't direct. It's processed, filtered, and shaped by our past experiences, beliefs, and expectations. Let me give you an example. When you look at a tree, you don't see the tree as it truly is. Your brain receives light patterns, processes them based on your learned concept of tree, and creates an image that makes sense to you. The actual tree might be very different from what you perceive. Our emotions work the same way. We don't experience pure feelings. We experience our interpretation of events filtered through our personal history. If someone doesn't wave back at us, we might feel hurt or angry based on our past experiences of rejection, when maybe they just didn't see us. This filtered reality serves a purpose. It helps us make quick decisions and respond to our environment, but it can also trap us in limiting patterns and false beliefs. We might avoid opportunities because of fears based on past experiences that no longer apply to our current situation. The illusion goes deeper than just our senses. Our sense of self, who we think we are, is part of this constructed reality too. We build stories about ourselves. I'm not good at math. I'm always unlucky in love. I can't handle stress. These stories feel true because we've repeated them so often, but they're just patterns in our minds. Social media adds another layer to this illusion. We see carefully curated versions of other people's lives and compare them to our unfiltered daily experience. This creates an even bigger gap between perceived and actual reality. Money is another powerful illusion we all participate in. Paper bills and digital numbers have value because we collectively agree they do. The entire global economy runs on this shared belief system. Time itself might be different from how we experience it. We perceive time as flowing from past to future in a straight line. But physics suggests this might not be how time actually works. Our experience of time passing is another construction of our minds. Breaking free from these illusions isn't about rejecting them completely. They're useful tools for functioning in society. Instead, it's about recognizing them for what they are, mental constructs rather than absolute truth. Think about how a dream feels real while you're in it. Only upon waking do you realize it wasn't reality. Similarly, becoming aware of our daily illusions can be like waking up to a broader truth. This awareness can be liberating. When we recognize that our limitations are often self-imposed through our mental constructs, we can start to question and change them. If our brain created these patterns, it can create new ones. But this recognition comes with responsibility. Once we see how our minds shape our reality, we become more conscious of our role in creating our experience. We can't blame everything on external circumstances anymore. The good news is that understanding the illusory nature of our experience gives us more control over it. Just as a movie loses its emotional grip once we remember it's just a movie, our fears and anxieties lose some power when we see them as mental constructions. This doesn't mean our experiences aren't real. They're very real to us in the moment. But knowing they're constructed by our minds gives us the option to construct them differently. Consider how different cultures see the world in vastly different ways. What's obvious to one group might be invisible to another. This shows how much our perception depends on what we've learned to perceive. Living in the illusion is like being in a play, where we're both the actor and the audience. We can get caught up in the drama, or we can step back and remember it's all a performance. Both perspectives have their place. The key is finding balance, using the illusion when it serves us while staying aware of its constructed nature. This awareness creates space for change and growth beyond the limitations of our current perceived reality. The moment of awakening hits each person differently. For some, it comes like a bolt of lightning, sudden and shocking. For others, it creeps in slowly, like the morning sun breaking through clouds. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. Think back to all the times you felt something wasn't quite right. Those little doubts that popped up when you watched the news, or that gut feeling that the story didn't add up. Those weren't random thoughts. They were your inner compass pointing to truth. We've been taught since childhood to accept what we're told. School trained us to memorize rather than question. Media feeds us pre-packaged views rather than raw facts. The system rewards compliance and punishes independent thinking. But deep down, we all sense these invisible chains. The real truth is simple. We are born free, not just legally free, but free in mind and spirit. No one has the right to control your thoughts, limit your potential, or force you down a path you didn't choose. Yet that's exactly what happens, through subtle manipulation, every single day. Look at how we live now. We wake up to alarm clocks, rush to jobs we often hate, buy things we don't need, watch shows that numb our minds and go to bed exhausted, only to repeat it all again tomorrow. We're told this is normal, this is success, this is life. But is it really? The truth is that we have far more power than we've been led to believe. Our thoughts create our reality. Our focus shapes our experience. Our choices determine our path. But we've given this power away, bit by bit, until we forgot we ever had it. The good news is that this power never truly leaves us. It stays dormant, waiting to be reclaimed. And reclaiming it starts with one simple step: questioning everything. Not from a place of paranoia, but from a place of honest curiosity. Ask yourself, why do I believe what I believe? Who benefits from me believing this? What would change if I believed something different? These questions crack open the shell of illusion and let light stream in. As you start asking questions, you'll notice patterns. You'll see how fear is used to control behavior, how artificial scarcity creates competition, how distraction keeps us from looking too closely at what really matters. The pieces start fitting together. But here's what they don't want you to know. Awakening isn't just about seeing what's wrong, it's about recognizing what's possible. When you break free from mental chains, you tap into creativity you didn't know you had. You find strength you forgot existed. You rediscover your true self. This awakening comes with responsibility. Once you see the truth, you can't go back to sleep. You become responsible for your own growth, your own choices, your own path. No more following blindly, no more accepting without questioning. Some people will resist your awakening. They'll call you crazy, tell you to stay in line, try to pull you back into the old patterns. This is normal. Change makes people uncomfortable, especially when it challenges their own beliefs. Stand firm in your truth, not with anger or judgment, but with calm certainty. The truth doesn't need defending. It simply is. Your role isn't to convince others, but to live authentically and let your example speak for itself. Start small. Question one belief today. Change one habit tomorrow. Take one step toward authenticity next week. Small steps add up to major shifts over time. The key is consistency, not speed. Your awakening might feel lonely at first, but as you continue on this path, you'll find others who see what you see. People who question what you question. Souls who seek what you seek. These connections will come naturally at the right time. Remember this: awakening isn't a destination, it's an ongoing process. Each day brings new insights, new questions, new opportunities to choose truth over illusion. Some days will feel harder than others. That's okay. Progress isn't always linear. The most beautiful part of awakening is what it reveals about human potential. We are not limited beings meant to live small lives. We are powerful creators, capable of shaping reality itself. This truth has been hidden from us because it threatens those who profit from our sleep. Now is the time to wake up. Not because someone told you to, but because your heart knows it's right. Trust that inner voice. Follow that quiet knowing. Step into your power. The illusion is breaking down. More people wake up every day. You're not alone in seeing through the cracks. Together we create a new way of living, one based on truth, freedom, and authentic connection. This is your moment, your awakening, your truth. And if you've ever seen the movie Inception, you've already touched on this idea, the concept that reality is shaped by belief, imagination, and intention. But this isn't just a movie, it's real. Your energy, your focus, and your belief have the power to shape the world around you. To dive deeper into this, and learn how to control your energy field. Check out my video on mastering your energy. It's your next step on this journey. And if you're finding value here, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to stay connected. Let me know in the comments if Inception made you think differently about what's real. Type, "I'm ready," if you feel the shift happening and you're ready to embrace your true power. Thank you for walking this path of awakening with me. Till the next time.